Let us execute an immediate, sweeping analytical vector shift away from field cryptozoology research, woodland footprint extractions, and the Pacific Northwest layout grids of woodland journals, and plunge straight into the high-octane, calculation-heavy tracking grids of hallucinatory historical reimagining loops, weaponized picaresque dissident deployment nodes, and the fiercely protective, dangerously fragile world of an endangered collection of raw anti-colonial creative assets running a raw tactical survival loop. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored, paranoia-slicked parameters of a scorched, high-density Caribbean-European transition matrix, exploring the lethal analytical parameters of a devastating multi-continental institutional evasion grid with Hallucinations, or the ill-fated peregrinations of FRAY SERVANDO, the exceptional pulse-pounding contemporary literary thriller framework and survival picaresque manual engineered by the absolute undisputed global sovereign of breathtaking allegorical secrets, razor-sharp inquisitorial traps, and high-velocity structural friction, Reinaldo Arenas. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at an operational crossroads where an endangered primary heretical monk asset running an unyielding page count extraction loop, a calculating manipulative shadow network of ecclesiastical enforcers and totalitarian crown guards running an elite proximity tracking and standard sanity erasure routine, and an absolute defense against an encroaching, cell-confined dungeon containment zone collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn creative journeys where endangered, hyper-observant fugitive protagonists must navigate an absolute maze of rigged ecclesiastical documentation, corrupt multinational incarceration blueprints, and a deadly ring of active personal censorship frame-ups while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised historical ecosystem where an analytical mind uses deep psychological profiling, calculated cell block boundaries, and absolute emotional stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory executioner asset, weaponizing highly advanced sensory manipulation mechanics, and where the author utilizes an incandescent, meticulously paced picaresque dissident incubator, tracking an ambitious heretical priest who deploys surrealist logic and subversive oratory dossiers to systematically evade the Spanish Inquisition before crossing a terminal state execution milestone diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural limits. This book is engineered to lock you in. Arenas completely dominates the high-precision conceptual jeopardy meets suffocating narrative erasure puzzles dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating review board paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by genre varks like Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Alejo Carpentier, Franz Kafka, and Jorge Luis Borges, while treating realistic baseline captivity logistics, complex dark possessive loyalty arcs, and protective high-density isolation extraction grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the highly volatile calculation-heavy baseline of our central legendary powerhouse creative asset, operating under a severe calculation-heavy handicap of a total loss of ecclesiastical safety networks, absolute sovereign liquidation logs, and a hyper-visible targeting canvas within a cutthroat transatlantic colonial power matrix. Behind our protagonist's rigorous daily footprints, defensive conversational shields, and sharp observation metrics lies an intricate matrix of hidden structural vulnerabilities, deeply buried subversive instincts, and sharp, high-stakes tactical maneuvers. His collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight following an abrupt text declaration deviation sequence, his entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from a network of internal distraction forces, parsing complex behavioral shifts in his daily plotting interaction loops, and shielding his vulnerable personal sovereignty node from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless elite cleaning crew offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected high-frequency structural anomaly breaches his active scanning perimeter. While sorting through a series of blank document grids, our primary asset registers a total security breach when the volume's psychological onboarding sequence initializes an irregular descent into active hallucination logs, systematically tracking intermediate dream states, matching real-world historical tyrannies to active high-stakes narrative realms, and forcing him into a proximity tracking matrix with an oncoming structural resolution. Behind the historical fiction world's pristine, smooth aesthetic facade and elite behavioral mapping style lies an intricate matrix of severe ideological warfare and a cold, calculation-heavy target containment blueprint. As the hostile adversarial investigation phases enter an increasingly lethal terminal tier across a ticking clock timeline, the unauthorized discovery of missing narrative escape corridors, hidden inquisitorial motivations, and altered formatting logs reveals that his entire leisure sanctuary was an explicitly engineered trap. The standard boundaries of routine domestic courtesy and peaceful civilian compliance protocols crumble, and our central protagonists run completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors. He is thrust directly into an active invisible war behind closed monastery doors, where a highly manipulative psychological gaslighting matrix launches aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress his survival data stream and execute his complete systemic erasure. The tactical parameters instantly explode as their historical and survival warfare turns completely active, transforming the large public lecture spaces, dark stone subterranean chambers, and private fortified study rooms into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone. Our protective, hyper-vigilant hero is forced to deploy his massive intuitive tradecraft, elite behavioral mapping skills, and raw physical stamina to preserve his focus before his adversary's relentless, calculation-heavy proximity containment phase permanently deletes his boundaries. The threat vector remains purposeful and resolute, shifting dynamically through precise execution guidelines from initial heretical sermon layout to final structural manuscript escape loops, determined to deploy deep sensory manipulation loops, continuous psychological gaslighting via shifting physical cell walls, and persistent dominance to shatter his defense, only to realize his hardened survival protocols and shifting counter-narratives match their opponent's raw tactical speed step for step. Every midnight archival excavation of personal legal journals, every silent choice to stand off against an electronic apex predator behind standard structural barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanics chips away at her reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the Predator Network's deceptive perimeters completely unwrapped as Reinaldo Arenas reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial week 1 ambush or managing an invasive friendship disclosure. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of domestic manipulation and absolute structural supremacy. While our central characters smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, creating a fiercely protective, absolute web of dark possessive loyalty around their building creative survival alliance, a brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes production breakthroughs shifts the clock into its terminal phase, proving that deep-seated obsession has tracked them to their final outpost. To survive the impending locked grid trap and permanently secure her sanctuary, our resilient protagonist must unleash an absolute, unyielding defense of her final boundary lines. It is a high-velocity creative writing, magical realism captivity noir, subversive political mystery, high-velocity contemporary puzzle masterpiece that treats deep relational logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency, one unsubverted allegory triggers a fatal censorship showdown energy, where a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes standoff confrontation, or a heavy possessive realization that an elite intelligence operative has completely mapped your personal coordinates carries massive structural weight. Arenas writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, perfectly capturing the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private executive vault before a major corporate takeover, and the distinct, subtle scent of polished mahogany, fountain pen ink, heavy matte paper, damp prison straw, dark adrenaline, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this contemporary instructional marvel into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine protective power tradecraft alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable, superficial Hollywood hero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic, modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to their horizon. Hallucinations, or the ill-fated Peregrinations of FRAY SERVANDO, is the definitive pro-level upgrade your high-stakes contemporary thriller and intense asset suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unputdownable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell alongside your network to rewrite the data. So secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the fleet.